Is it ready to rumble?
We're ready to rumble now. All these poor people just got to see this visual and they're no.
How many people were watching it live?
1 million people were watching it live. I don't know. I never know. Anyways, I can tell the audio is working now. And those of you who did not hear all this before, we're going to do it again. Okay, so here we go.
Hopefully we haven't let down too many people. They should have heard the speech about failure. That was straight,
I know, it was awesome. It was so...
that was straight from the heart. They're not going to hear it like that again. I could maybe try.
We're talking about massive failure, which we just had. So here we go. Back with Leon Garcia. Okay, hello everybody. This is Scott Roberts and Leon Garcia here, and we're both here live from the Astronomical League Conference in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They're calling it astronomical gumbo. I guess the part of the culture here is that you have to eat gumbo if you're going to be in Louisiana. But there's a who's who of astronomers here, and you know, the league is doing what they always do, which is inspire people to get to further their programs. There's tons of presidents of astronomy clubs here. Of course, we're all excited about upcoming things like the eclipses and all the rest of it. The talks have been great. You gave a talk already, right?
Yeah, just this morning. It went much better than I thought it would, but I feel like I was able to get all my points across. So that's the number one thing
awesome.
that you want from a talk.
That's awesome. We talked about all kinds of things, and I wanted you to talk about your experience in getting started in astronomy and you know, what, or just science in general. You talked about your parents being involved in science to a degree. What's your family like?
I guess so my dad's a consultant and he works with nonprofits, and my mom is an economist at Oregon State University.
Okay.
And yeah, she kind of taught me how some of the things about academia and how to kind of interact with that, both the group of people who are around there, and then also use a lot of the same techniques in research as professionals do. And she taught me how to use LaTeX and told me that was
LaTeX.
Really, yeah, it's a word processing software that a lot of academics use to write, and I've used it for the past couple of years to write up all my findings from my research, and it's been really great. And usually my parents, I can present my stuff to them, and they'll say that makes no sense at all, and it's good to have kind of an outside looking in.
You got peer review within your own family, I guess.
Yeah, they're like, that doesn't make any sense to me, and so they can kind of keep me grounded and make it so that I have to communicate what I find and fully understand it, as opposed to just hiding behind jargon, if that makes sense.
I can understand that. Yeah, and there's a lot of us that can do that. And you throw out the right words or whatever, and to make it sort of sound like you know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
but maybe you really don't, So
The more acronyms and jargon, the less engaging I think it is.
I would agree with that. You grew up in California. You're a California native, or?
Well, I spent my early life in California, but
Okay.
I moved around all over the place, and now I've been in Oregon for the past 5 years.
Okay, all right. So I did too. I went to like 14 schools, 1st through 12th
Oh
grade.
wow, okay,
Yeah.
that's more than me. I moved around all over the place, but like
Yeah. But it makes it easier if you have moved around a bit, I think, because you're able to kind of break the ice a little bit easier with people. You have to meet fresh friends and all the rest of it when you move. But you're here today because of the National Young Astronomers Award, and that is the brainchild of Chuck Allen. Chuck was in here earlier. We were doing some photographs with two National Young Astronomer Award winners. Okay, this is the first time in all these years since the mid-90s when this program started that we have a tie for first place. Okay, who knew? Okay, so anyways, and I've been lucky enough to be kind of a cheerleader for the whole program, to be involved with our support. I've always been in the telescope industry, and so it was kind of cool to see this happen. So kind of a historical moment. But we did a whole program with no audio. Sorry, folks. Okay. But at the end of it, we did this conversation about massive failure, right? And
yeah,
so,
it was timely.
it was very timely. That's right. So anyhow, but let's talk a little bit about the stepping stones that you went through. You said you started about 7 or 8 years old. Is that right?
Yeah, when I was in about 3rd grade, not doing research, but that was my first kind of exposure to generally space and the world outside of ours. Mm-hmm. And that was when I first saw the Curiosity rover land on Mars.
Right.
I saw the engineers jumping up and down, and my dad got me up way past my bedtime to see it because it was a really big deal.
Around midnight when you saw it, right?
Yeah, when it touched down, I think at midnight 1, 2. I just remember that it was late and that people were still excited in spite of that.
Yeah.
And that gave me a little bit of excitement too, because I wanted to feel that sense of discovery
Sure.
that they did. And when even though I was seeing a bunch of grainy satellite photos, I knew that something big was going on. And after that, I was hooked. I did science competitions like Science Olympiad in middle school and learned more about space and earth science through that. And then I started doing research summer before 9th grade. And that has...
Did all this stuff just come naturally to you, or did you have to really work hard at it?
It did not come naturally to me. I guess it did in a sense because I'm interested in it. So
Sure.
the interest came naturally. But so some of the math behind it has been more difficult. And as with any field in science, there's kind of a steep learning curve with physics and astrophysics, and I needed to put a lot of time into it, and I still do, because it's a very long process to become a research astrophysicist, and it's one that I'm excited to embark on.
Right,
and
you're right there now, so
Yeah,
that's cool. That's cool. So, but you mentioned that you kind of bounced around a bit with different kinds of things that you were interested in. Where did it start, and where it's led up to this project on dark matter? How would you say that kind of dovetailed into each other, or did it? So.
Yeah, I mean, summer before 9th grade, I attended the Arizona Advanced Astronomy Camp at University of Arizona.
Okay.
And they let us, as teenagers, use their multi-million-dollar radio telescopes,
Right.
which It's quite something to think about. A bunch of high schoolers running around these radio telescopes frantically collecting data, and I didn't realize at the time what a privilege that was, that they let us just use that
Right.
type of research caliber equipment.
Right.
And that I pointed those at ring galaxies, which are these particularly type of visually appealing galaxy where there's
They're
a
beautiful,
ring and
right?
there's one called Hoag's object that I studied. It's a perfectly circular ring and a perfectly circular core, and it looks like an eyeball. Like perfectly. Like the circle is almost as perfect as this, which is strange since most things come in ellipses that are slightly oblate. And,
Sure.
What I did is I looked at the cores of two of these ring galaxies, and I found that there was little to no evidence of star-forming gas, which means that the cores would disappear before the rings.
Okay.
And
how did you determine that there was little to no star-forming gas?
So there's this tracer gas called CO, and it's one carbon atom, one oxygen atom, and it's generally present everywhere that there is star-forming gas. And so it can be observed in radio wavelengths, which means that everything in space emits kind of at a given frequency that we can perceive, except for dark matter, which I can get into later.
Right.
But I was able to gather radio waves in a dish on Earth from this isotope that was emitting radio waves in space.
Okay.
And I found that isotope elsewhere, but not in the cores of these ring galaxies, because I wanted to test out, if it was even there in the first place, and that was my first exposure to research. And then the following summer, I wanted to do even more, so I joined this group of high school through graduate students that are dedicated to finding more pulsars and classifying different pulsar candidates. And through that program, I also got to use a radio telescope to look at these rapidly rotating dead stars that may contain matter inside of them that we have only theorized could exist, like strange matter, which is it would be an ultra stable type of matter that has a lot of strange properties. But that's all theoretical. That's not been proven anywhere. What I studied are these highly magnetic version of those called anomalous X-ray pulsars that are commonly not believed to emit a lot of radio waves, but I was able to detect radio waves from them using a pretty small dish. And,
Wow.
And the following summer, I stayed in kind of that vein of high energy astrophysics, where basically everything emits at a certain wavelength, so these are emitting more gamma rays and X-rays, which are more energetic and can be harmful to us if we have enough of them pass through us.
Sure.
And knock off.
And they are right now passing through us. Right?
Well, thank goodness for our ozone, because our ozone layer gets slightly broken apart by these gamma rays, and it gets it kind of absorbs this radiation, which can knock off nucleotides from our DNA and cause all sorts of issues. But I studied bursts of gamma rays, short gamma ray bursts, the following summer.
SRBs, right?
Yeah, SGRBs.
Oh, SGRBs, right?
Yeah, they're the most powerful explosions in the universe since the Big Bang, and just something about them releasing more energy than the sun does in its entire lifetime in under 2 seconds is something to consider. And I definitely considered it before I embarked on that project, because I was like, wow, I really need to look at a way to look at more of these, because we've been missing so many of them, because when these two neutron stars collide, they create these jets, and we've only been able to see them when they point directly at Earth. And I used data from bursts that pointed at us to see what bursts that pointed away from us would have looked like, and determine that radio observations, coincidence, I know, because I've been doing so much radio stuff, are the best way to look at them after we initially detect a gravitational wave from somewhere.
So even though you did all these different projects, they all kind of came together so that you could do this work.
Yeah, I mean, space is cool in that way, in that it's an interconnected system, like everything else, and there are kind of similarities everywhere that you look, even if you're looking in a completely different place, which brings me to my current project, which is about dark matter.
So So explain, you did a beautiful job in our silent version of this
Yeah,
program.
maybe you could have had subtitles for our viewers in the 1920s,
That's right.
like a Harold Lloyd
That's
film.
right. Explain, for the lay person out there, what is dark matter, or what they think dark matter is, and some of the latest theories about it.
So dark matter is kind of, it's matter that does not emit light. And the reason why that's a big deal is because the way that we have interacting with the universe is by gathering light from faraway sources. And when we can't gather light from something in the universe, the only way that we can determine that it's there is by the interactions that it has gravitationally with stuff that emits light. And that's exactly what dark matter is. It's the invisible hand sculpting the universe to its will, so to speak. It provides the gravitational pressure for stuff to form. And
You described it as kind of like a glue. Or,
yeah, it's almost like you could think of it like a glue that holds the universe together, and it still plays a very large role whenever the universe is at one of these so-called turning points where galaxies collide with one another. Dark matter plays a big role in those interactions, and when galaxies merge, when they gather mass, when the universe first started off, there was no structure to it, and then dark matter began to pull matter into its fold that we can see, and there's very strong evidence that dark matter was the primary kind of driver behind the structure formation in the early universe, which means it was like a soup and then bubbles emerged, and dark matter was kind of causing these bubbles to bubble up, and then our late stage.
So maybe dark matter is the true primordial material of the universe, or would you describe it like that?
The theory that I was operating under is that it's made up of these tiny little particles, which could have formed immediately after the Big Bang. They're small, tiny things called axions, and they're 1/10,000,000th the mass of an electron.
1/10,000,000,000th. Okay, almost
Very
not
small.
there.
Yeah, they're so small that we would have trouble actually detecting them, because they wouldn't really do anything to electromagnetic fields. Like if we bounced light off of them, we're not sure if it would bounce back. And there are currently some experiments trying to detect axions by passing them through electromagnetic currents or magnets that are super strong, and trying to split them into two photons, which is beyond what I did in this project. But the main thing about these axions is that they can cluster together even though they're very small. So many of them come together in space that they can create these kind of areas of higher gravitational potential energy, or more areas with more gravity. And what that means is that we can simulate them by simulating areas of higher gravity, or these waveforms over space. And my project was using a lot of wave simulations to kind of determine how dark matter's behaving.
Okay, great. So so your project in particular, you used you formed some models, and how would you describe your project?
So somebody else wrote a model for this. I didn't come up with the theory in particular, but I applied this model that was developed at the University of Auckland, and is Python compatible. You can try it at home too, Pi Ultralight.
Okay.
And I applied this model to 4 different circumstances that it has not been applied to, but are super fundamental for the universe's development, and was able to find that this model is squaring as well as, or even better than, previous theories when you look at actual data on certain objects.
Wow. And what led you to choose these 4 different models?
So these were 4 things that the universe does at a transition point. The first thing that I did was apply this model to primordial gas clouds, or the earliest structures that form in the universe.
Makes sense.
And I did this by simulating a lot of random halo interactions, and a halo for those of you who don't know, of dark matter is like a cocoon that galaxies develop inside of, from the smallest of dwarf galaxies to these large spiral galaxies that are developed through collisions, which is another thing that I simulated in this project. I simulated collisions between two different real-life galaxy clusters, and also the process by which galaxies gather mass, known as accretion. And that those were the four different contexts that I applied it to, because the universe changes when galaxies form out of gas clouds, when they collide with one another, and when they gather mass.
I see.
And those transition points are really key to look at how dark matter influences the evolution of the universe from like a cosmological perspective.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's very cool. You started on this project how long ago?
Last summer, I began my literature review in August,
Okay.
and then I began my simulations in about October, and they ran through early to mid-February, and then I began typing up some of the stuff that I saw, and I ran a lot of different simulations of each of these four processes that I said. And
were you working with someone in particular?
I
Were you
was
working on your own?
Yeah, I wasn't working with anybody, but I did show these results to two different people who are operating within this very niche theory of dark matter that's been gaining a lot of steam recently, and they generally liked the direction that I was going and some of the results. And the person who gave the talk that inspired this this entire Dr. Zagratz, if you're there.
Big shout out.
Yeah, she read over the first draft of my paper and gave me some really helpful feedback. And so,
wow.
Yeah.
That must really excite someone like her, because, she's in this very narrow field. She sees this young person coming up and trying to apply things, her hypothesis or theory towards some models, and that, of course, adds strength. That's what you need as a working scientist, and you guys may be embarking on something that you'll be studying for decades, but this is very, very cool. And so what led, how were you introduced to the National Young Astronomers Award?
So actually that camp at University of Arizona that I mentioned they have a very nice website where they tell you what their alumni went on to do, and I think a couple of their alumni actually went on to win this award. So I thought I've actually entered this competition for the past 3 or 4 years. I don't remember if I did during the pandemic, but this has been a great way to end my senior year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I know a lot of the past winners have gone on to do really great research in college and beyond.
I imagine you will too. So are you going to continue on with this path on dark matter, or you think there's some other things in high energy physics that you want to do? What is your future like?
I think I'm probably going to. I can't say this for certain because life is weird.
Life will throw things at you, like the sound not working on our last program.
Exactly. I gave the greatest speech and it's lost the time.
It was an awesome speech, you guys. So,
and I'd say that I don't know for sure where I'm going to go, but I know what's appealing to me. I know that I'm really interested in high energy physics because these are the most extreme things in the universe, and I really am fascinated with extreme events and things that rip apart our current understanding of physics. But dark matter is one of these things that is critical to understanding cosmology, which is another thing that I'd really like to get into in the future. And I don't have a strong background in cosmology.
I think you will eventually. So,
yeah.
Right. Now, also we talked about getting other people interested. I think that you had kind of a natural gravitation towards this. I think a lot of young people do. What does a young person need to kind of cross the bridge to doing something like what you've done? Okay, I think that I know in the world there are challenges. Some of them are imposed by governments or just society in general that kind of push and hold people back. But obviously, you're not one of these people that was held back here, which makes it great to talk to someone like you. But have you been involved in trying to give confidence to other young people to take these next steps?
Yeah, I've for the past 4 years, I've run a science club at my high school, and I think it's in good hands now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've invited a lot of professors to give talks there about their research
Great.
and encourage kids to get involved with their labs. And a couple of students have done that at the high schools. I think that's really great that that science club was able to achieve that. But also, what I tell the kids in there is that they should, if they're interested in something, they should cold email professors and not be afraid to pursue it. Because ultimately, the worst thing that they can say is no.
Right.
Like the
And
worst
they're
thing
probably
that,
not going to say no, though. Right?
It's very rare that professors will say no. They might not respond immediately, but they are very interested in outreaching to community. Either because they're naturally really want to share their research with
Sure.
young people, or because the NSF actually has as part of their grants the broader impact and community outreach. So they're actually mandated by the government to
They
get
have
grants.
to do
to
this,
talk.
right?
So if you're a student, you should reach out to professors, because oftentimes universities won't provide them with a way to do community outreach. So if you get involved with their labs, they're really happy to have you, because it helps them get grants, and it helps them learn how to present their research to the public, which is something that a lot of professors really enjoy doing.
Right. That's fantastic. Well, you've done a fantastic job just right here. I mean, you gave me a better understanding of this this hypothesis of that dark matter could be a tiny particle. Okay. Dark matter, I think, is mysterious to all of us, and but they say it's the most abundant thing in the universe. So that's fantastic. What would you say? What would you say now to someone that is not young but maybe older? Okay, we also have a problem. I meet people every day that are afraid to take next steps in almost anything. They want to have this safety zone and stuff. I'm 64 now, and I'll be 65, and people talk about their retirements and doing the right things, being very, very careful into their later years and all the rest of it. I think there might be a little bit more adventure in life if you're just always kind of pushing the envelope a little bit. And we talked about failure. We're going to have this conversation again, but this time with a working microphone.
Yeah, I guess what I'd say is that you, if failure is something that is kind of preventing you from doing something that you really want to do, you should just look failure in the face and say, you can't do this to me.
Right.
You have to push back. And although I haven't been close to retirement ever, and I can't say that I've ever experienced like the kind of the desire to settle down yet.
Right.
I still think that everybody should try to maximize their potential to their greatest ability. There's, in fact, an entire genre of books that help people do that. The
Sure.
self-help genre that has kind of created a whole market off of this. But I guess if you really want to do something, you shouldn't be afraid of failure, because you only have one life. You should use it to its maximum potential. And
Right. Well, it's through failure that we actually learn something.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. We learn that microphones don't always work, and they're not always on, and that we can do. And the next, Caitlin's gonna have a great time because the mic will be on, and ultimately, even if we go into presentations and misspell words and are pointed out, I mean, it's all good, because ultimately, I think people take take the world too seriously.
Yes.
Like, and I don't know if it's that
And
they
they're
take,
afraid,
yeah,
they're just afraid. So,
of being judged. Of, like it, I think that it's getting up in front of a crowd of people and telling them that, I guess, that a particular theory of dark matter that's gaining steam is actually really good at describing what the universe is. I don't think that you're going to be judged for that necessarily, but for people who want to take even bigger steps in their personal life or their professional life, shouldn't be afraid of other people's judgments.
Right.
They should do their thing, and that's how the best stuff is made and done.
That's right. This is probably the way you could live your best life. So that's great. We should do like inspirational coaching or something like that.
Yeah, we should start our own self-help book, like how to meet friends and influence people.
Influence people. That's right. That's right. So anyhow, we want to thank everybody for watching this. I touched on that Explore Scientific, and I was with Mead Instruments for many years, and we did support the National Young Astronomers Award with a gift of a telescope. I asked Leon if he had a telescope, and so I guess this is your first one.
Yep.
So hopefully it's something you can use for a long time. You mentioned that you were able to use a lot of other people's telescopes and stuff. I hope that you share this one too and do some outreach of your own. So I mentioned too that I'd like to have you on some of our other shows and stuff like that. I promise to have a working mic for you. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, then we can spread the gospel of
That's right.
of doing what you got to do.
That's right, and doing what you love. Okay, so, next up is going to be Caitlin Wong. She is the other first place winner of the National Young Astronomers Award. Again, we're here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at the 2023 Alcon. Thank you very much, Leon.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And stay tuned. We'll be back with more of this program. Okay.
That went pretty
Is that okay?
well. Yeah. That was great.
Leon, thank you so much.
Yeah, now I'm gonna go to answer some questions.
Okay.
From the people in the other room. Well, I'll tell Caitlin to come in.
Please do.